In this video, we're going to look at learning styles, specifically how you as a presenter, a public speaker, can engage your listeners more effectively through appealing to the different learning styles. So let's get into the details. Hello again, friends, and welcome back. If this is the first time you're joining us, Communication Coach, this channel is here for people who are probably like you, rising leaders who want to increase your personal impact so you can lead all the people around you to higher levels of excellence. And part of leadership is communication and teaching and standing up and presenting. And when we're doing this, one of the best ways that you can engage your audience is to think in terms of the different learning styles they probably have. So by appealing to auditory, visual, and kinesthetic learners in your preparation for your presentation, you're much more likely to engage everybody overall. And so that's what I'm recommending, to use these three learning styles as a way to make sure you're appealing to a wide range of your listeners. So the first type of learning style is called auditory. This has all to do with the ears. That's the sense we're going after. And in my experience, a lot of public speakers are already pretty good at this. If you think about it, when you're preparing your message, you are crafting out what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and so you've already worked on your words pretty well. So if you want to take it to the next level and appeal to our ears in a slightly different way, think about the kinds of metaphors that you could use. Think about the kind of colorful language you can use, like analogies and alliteration and possibly rhyme. I'm not a rhymer, but I know some people, it fits their style. And so these are ways to take the normal crafted language you've already worked on and pump it up a little bit more to appeal to your auditory listeners. So that's the first learning style. Second learning style is visual, and a lot of people are visual learners. And so to appeal to your visual learners, you want to appeal obviously to their eyes. The easiest way to do this is, because you're going to be presenting the whole time, you have to use your body to maximum advantage. You want to gesture, you want to move with a purpose on your platform, on your stage. You might even go out a little bit into your audience, like an aisle or something, to engage them visually in this way, because their eyes have to follow you around. You don't want to be distracting and just pace for no reason, but you want to move with a purpose, and that's one of the ways you can do it. Another way to do it is through better visual aids, like your PowerPoints. You want to show images and something compelling to look at. When I first started making PowerPoints many years ago teaching, I only had text up there, and it was very boring, and my students were like, "Are you kidding me? This is just black and white, tiny font. These PowerPoints are jammed." And so I had to go that extra step and figure, how can I make my visual aids a little bit more visually appealing, because that's what they're supposed to be in the first place. Speaking of visual aids, you probably want to use an actual object if you can, instead of just a PowerPoint. So for example, if you're talking about exercising, instead of just having an image up there or talking about your exercising, you want to have an actual object, like a prop of some sort. So if you're talking about lifting weights, maybe you bring some weights up there. If you're talking about doing other kinds of exercises, you want to show some kind of visual object or prop to bring it to life. Way more engaging than simply saying it or even showing a picture of it. One of the best props, by the way, is an actual person. So here's another tip for visual learners. You can bring up a volunteer, so that's one more person for them to look at. And if that person is demonstrating something with you, they're doing a role play or a skit of any kind, that really brings it to life visually, because they're hearing it, certainly, the role play, but when you see people act it out, that's visually appealing to them. They're much more likely to remember it. So there's almost endless visual approaches that you could use, and this is one of the ways you can do it, by thinking in terms of, okay, now how can I appeal to my visual learners? And the last learning style we'll talk about is kinesthetic. I actually just say physical learners, because that's the easiest way to remember it. This is where you want to engage people physically. You ask them to do something with their hands, with their bodies, that's going to help them learn. So for example, you may have seen this if you've ever watched a magician in a live audience. Oftentimes when they pick volunteers, they don't just pick volunteers, they want to make it seem random. Maybe it is random, and they ask them to, let's say, toss a ball. They would say, okay, I'm going to toss this ball. And after a few tosses, whoever it lands on, that person will be the volunteer that comes up to do this demonstration. And One of the reasons that works is, first of all, for a magician, it looks at least random, but also it engages people doing something physically. There's a kind of energy that happens when people are looking for the ball and looking to catch it and tossing it because they're doing something physically, and that's really a great way to involve people, to get them to handle an object like that, like a ball. Another thing you can do is ask people to do a little drawing or a sketch where they are. Maybe they're taking notes. Instead of just the words, you can ask them to sketch something out with their hands. That's a little more engaging physically. I once had a speaker do this recently where I was actually in the audience, and he had us draw a certain kind of picture on the top of this sheet of paper and then another one in a different, and it was just like stick figures, but he had colored pencils out on all the tables, and we folded our paper in half. There were physical things for us to do, and it was way better than him, again, just showing us a picture or telling us with his words. We were engaged physically, and that really helped. Another thing you can do is ask your listeners to do something physical, like stand up, go talk to somebody in this part of the room. As long as it helps make the point of your message, as long as it's not going to embarrass them or be overly weird, you want to engage them physically. So there might be a reason for them to move their bodies, and you want to make sure that you don't neglect that. You got to consider that. How can I get them to move their bodies in a way that helps them make the point, helps them learn? So when I do any kind of presentation, I always use these 3 learning styles as a mental map. How can I take my message and then pump it up a little by appealing to each of these learning strategies? So I make sure I have these 3 approaches throughout every presentation I do, and that's much more likely to engage everybody. And by the way, even if I'm a visual learner, I will still benefit from the other 2 learning styles if the presenter is doing those pretty well. It's not like visual only appeals to visual. All of these styles help all kinds of learners. You just want to make sure you don't neglect any and you cover all of your bases. So question of the day, what kind of learner are you, and what are the strategies that you would recommend if you were in the audience? How can we better appeal to you as an auditory, visual, or kinesthetic learner? I would love to hear your comments in that section below. And as a reminder, this is part 2 of a very short video series on how to engage your audience. Don't forget to check out that other video, and I'll put a link to the description to that below the video. So take care. I'll see you in the next video.